Hello, this is Demon Phoenix with another Witcher 3 video. This time continuing from the Death March walkthrough, and having finished the main game, we're now moving on to the fantastic Hearts of Stone expansion. Hearts of Stone is really interesting. It has some fantastic characters and really good development, and the story is a lot of fun as well. You start it with the Evil's First Soft Touches mission, and very soon after entering the sewer and taking the contract from Olgierd to kill a monster, you meet Shani in the sewer, and Shani's one of the main characters in the DLC. After killing some drowners and investigating, you will set a trap to lure out the monster that Olgierd has hired us to kill for this particular contract, and set out the events in motion for Hearts of Stone. Now this is one of the parts of the game where, especially with the expansions, they ramp up the difficulty to provide some extra challenge. Especially with all the mechanics that they produce, they provide a lot of mechanics that will increase and change things in the game, so the bosses tend to be quite difficult and a little bit harder. Now the Toad boss is one of the ones that sometimes gives people a lot of problems, especially the first time you fight it. You don't know what you're doing, you don't know its styles and its attacks. Fortunately for us, we do know its styles and attacks, and that's what we're going to go over here. There are a couple of things that are really important when you're fighting the Toad Prince boss. It's weak to Erden and to the Igni, but we don't have Alt Erden, so it's harder to hit it with the Erden sign. It can be quite difficult to trap it because it's very mobile, it jumps about a lot, and it knocks you back with lots of its attacks, so you have to be quite patient and careful. Now you should get your alchemy substances back there, although in this case it did leave the decoctions in place for me, same normal decoctions as usual. You need to use cursed oil. It's actually a cursed monster, even though it looks like it might be an insectoid or something differently. It's an amphibian or whatever, but it's actually cursed. So you can use the superior golden aureole potion. Now this is crucial for this fight because he has a lot of venom attacks that will do poisoning, and you can also use superior full moon if you want to give you a bit of a boost to your health. You're using the normal decoctions and everything else like that, and because of Euphoria we have quite good sign intensity. Now the boss, as we said, is quite weak to burning, so the two bombs that we want to be using are the superior Dancing Star and the superior Northern Wind. You can use Dragon's Dream as well if you want, which can also inflict burning when you use Igni or when the boss is already on fire. So those are very useful. So you can see there we've got the Water Hag, the Ekamara and the Arakas decoctions, and then we use superior Northern Wind and superior Dancing Star. Now Northern Wind's really good because it will freeze him in place, and that's excellent for letting you close the gap and getting in a lot of solid hits with Whirl. If you haven't been to Toussaint, if you've not been doing the one Turn and Face the Strange mission in Blood and Wine, you can still beat the boss using the same tactics. It'll just take you a bit longer because you're doing a bit less damage. So, Northern Wind and Whirl, particularly if you can get behind him, is useful. He will sometimes knock you back with his attack, so you just got to be a bit patient there. But Whirl can stun him and do a lot of damage. And as you can see, instead of the poison hurting, because of superior golden aureole, we're actually getting health back from that. So that's extremely useful there as well. The Dancing Star, as I mentioned, particularly the superior one, will inflict burning and will do a lot of damage as well. It looks like he may stop burning when he jumps, but actually every time he lands, he just starts burning again. And this is how you take down his health. You can take 15 to 25% of his health with Whirl and the Euphoria damage every time you get in a solid Whirl before he knocks you back. And it's very useful, especially with the Maribor and Superior Tornial, when you let your toxicity go down a little bit later in the fight. So after you kill him, I'm trying to keep it as spoiler free as possible. But you will kill him, and you can also see there that I went up to level 35, and because we've been saving up some ability points, as long as you've got over 4 ability points, that's what we're going to use a little bit later. And we'll come back to that a little bit later on. Level 35 also upgrades the Nilfgaardian DLC armour that you can purchase in Crow's Perch, and again we'll come back to that. So, Gauntro speaks to you on this boat and helpfully brands you and gives you some quite dubious help as well to help you out of the situation. The brand won't actually go away until you finish the Hearts of Stone main missions. The person that you speak to tells you about the Ophiri language. It's difficult to get the right option. If you have the subtitles on, it's easier to tell exactly what he's saying and then to copy it to get some extra experience points when it comes up with the timed option when the Ophiri guards are speaking to you in Ophiri language. After this you've got this brilliant little cutscene, nice little scene setting here for the fight that's coming up. This fight is actually optional, which some people don't realise because it can be a very difficult fight, so it's optional, you don't have to fight it. I always do because I'm stubborn as a mule. but I don't know actually how you would escape from it. I just know it's optional. I'd imagine you can either jump in the sea and swim away, or you can just run away until you're out of range and then be able to call Roach. But assuming like me that you are quite stubborn and you want to be fighting it, there's a couple of little tricks for the fight and some things to watch out for, just like normal. Again, you should get your potions and decoctions back, or they should still be active from the Toad Prince fight. And this mage is the sort of leader of the group, but you can't actually hurt him until you've killed his henchman. So you have to kill the henchman first. Now, as with a lot of things in Witcher 3, you can actually go into the menu at any time. So as soon as the fight starts, you will have your silver sword and your trousers and your boots, but you can equip your chestplate and then use the hangman's venom and all of the usual decoctions. And that's one of the useful things about this fight. I actually forget to equip the gloves here, but it doesn't really make a lot of difference. But again, you can use those with the potions for support to make the fight a lot easier. So you kill these guys first. You've got to take them out, like I say, before you can damage the mage. I tried rushing the mage and just killing him first, but it doesn't work. He doesn't take any damage, even from rend. So as you see there, there's still a couple of the normal enemies, so I've got to take out the henchman before I can hit him. In this fight, it's very important that you stay away from the mage's tornado attack, which can be very damaging. You just can dodge away from it or run away from it. You can roll, but that uses your stamina, so try and avoid doing that a little bit. But when you've killed the regular guards, you want to make sure that you use Superior Tornial, and if your toxicity's gone low enough, the Superior Maribolt and Thunderbolt, to be able to deal with this guy quickly, have more adrenaline for rage management, and have more stamina for using your signs and for whirl and rend as well. So this guy can do a fair amount of damage, but as long as you've got the Aracast decoction and normal things, you should be able to manage his attacks. You only need to get close to him a couple of times, and 2 sets of whirl or a couple of hits of rend will do massive damage to him and finish him off pretty easily. And then you can go and explore the ship in the background and pick up some good stuff there as well. Now, as you can see, I reached level 35 as it showed at the end of the Toad fight, and I have enough lesser red mutagens to combine them all into red and then greater red mutagens to be able to get magic sensibilities, and more importantly use the red mutagens to get deadly counter. Now, the reason I want to get those two instead of magic sensibilities and piercing cold is because piercing cold takes 1 more ability point than deadly counter. But when we've got those next 2 mutations, that will mean that we've got 4 in total and give us a second strength and synapses slot. So we have synergy, which we already had in the first strength and synapses slot, and now we can put either poison blades or tissue transmutation. I've gone with tissue transmutation here because that gives 1000 vitality per decoction, and we're usually using 3 decoctions at the moment. So an extra 3000 vitality. You don't really need it, but it's quite helpful. You might as well have it in that second slot. We'll also be getting cat school techniques once we've maxed out the rune right and paid him level 3, but that's quite expensive, so I've not done that just yet, and some people might not be able to afford it depending on how you've gone with spending the money and things, so we're not going to do that just yet. We'll eventually be getting Sunder Armour and finishing off the rest of the build. We'll come back to that later. As I said, at level 35 the Nilfgaardian Armour DLC will get upgraded, and it's useful to go back to Crow's Perch. The medium armour still has good resistances, but those aren't actually improved very much, if at all. I can't remember, but the trousers and the boots get large increases, and the Nilfgaardian trousers at level 35 are almost as good as the level 41 Unvik ones that you get, so they're a very good substitute for now, so I would recommend picking those up. And I got the boots as well. I was using the older folk boots, but I got those instead. When you go back to speak to Olgierd, first things before you do this, make sure that your inventory weight is as low as possible. And there is actually an optional fight. If you challenge these 2 henchmen who have been tasked with killing this random gentleman, if you challenge them and tell them that you're going to stop them from killing the person, Olgierd will come down and he will challenge you to a duel. Now, I would make a manual save before you do this and make sure that, like say, your inventory is as low as possible, so you get as much benefit from Aracast decoction as possible. This is an optional fight, but it's a really excellent fight, and it's one of my favourite battles that you can have in Witcher 3. It's a really good duel. I'm just going to leave this little bit because I like the actual dialogue, so I'm just going to leave it 1 minute. And yes, Olgierd does look a lot like David Beckham, but he is a cool character and this is a really good duel. So as you can see, it is doable even on deathmatch with enemy upscaling, but he is a really difficult opponent and it's a lot of fun in my opinion to try and fight him, and it really showcases that combat in Witcher 3 can be really good as well. You can't block his attacks. I think that was changed in a recent patch. I've only ever played it at 1.6, but I couldn't block or parry any of his attacks, so it's very useful to be able to dodge in this fight. Now, he does slashing damage, so even though we'll be able to reduce the damage, you don't want to be using the Warthog decoction because you won't spend very much of the fight at full health. So instead we're going to go with the Ancient Leshen decoction or the Succubus decoction. My personal preference is the Ancient Leshen decoction, and use Axii a few times. As I've said before in some of the difficult one-on-one fights, it's useful to do. Using Axii a few times boosts your stamina regeneration for the remainder of the fight and is a useful thing to do. So we've got the normal gear, we've got the Nilfgaardian's Guardsman's Gauntlets and the Mastercrafted Ursine, but now we've got the Nilfgaardian DLC trousers and boots because they provide a bit of extra defense, and they're excellent at this stage in the game. And then we're going to use Superior Hangman's Venom, and with protective coating, and I've only got 58 in my inventory, so keep that as low as possible, so the Arakas decoction provides as big a boost as possible. Now because of the high slashing damage resistance that we've got, combined with protective coating on the Arakas, you can see Quen can take multiple hits. If you want a really high challenge, try this without either protective coating or the Arakas decoction. See how much damage Olgierd does. He does enormous damage with enemy upscaling on. It's really quite a challenging fight. So there are a few things to watch out for. Using Axii and the Ancient Leshen decoction to boost the stamina regeneration. You'll see here after a few uses, as I've shown in previous videos, it'll increase it quite a lot, so that you have higher stamina regeneration for the rest of the fight, and that's a very useful trait to have for this. You can hit him with Rend and he will counter attack sometimes when you get some hits on him. It's mostly dodging his attacks. He has a sword called Iris, and he will charge it up with red attacks like he did there, but if you can hit him or stop him with R during that, he will actually be vulnerable to be hitting with Whirl. Now most of the time he will block Whirl, but as you saw just before, when you get him in that red stunned phase you can hit him with it. And also if you're using the Succubus decoction instead of the Ancient Leshen, you might have a bit more difficulty hitting him with Ard because you won't have the stamina regeneration, but Erden, with the boost from Euphoria with the high sign intensity, can slow him down and mean that you can get in attacks in between his attacks and actually hit him with Whirl, as you can see there. And if you can stop him with his red charge attacks, you can still manage it there. So this is using the Succubus decoction and it's just as manageable, able to do the fight. If you're using the Ancient Leshen though, which like I say I think is the slightly better option for the third decoction in this fight, you can hit him with Rend, but you can also, with the rage management and the higher stamina regeneration, have a lot more sign use and repeatedly use Ard to stun Olgierd and get in some heavy hits. So that's a useful aspect of the fight, and it is a really good way of beating him down. If you're using a more hybrid build, if you're not using the exact same build as I am, or if you've got Ard Sweep as one of your skills, then Ard Sweep in the Ancient Leshen is even more effective because Ard Sweep takes less stamina and you can use it even more often. There you can see we used Ard when Olgierd was going for his charged up red Iris attack, and that stopped him in his tracks and let us get a few hits in with Whirl. So just make sure that you're dodging his attacks. When your toxicity wars off, you can use Superior Maribor and Superior Thunderbolt and Superior Swallow if you're taking damage, and you can normally beat Olgierd. And like I say, it's just one of the most fun fights. So coming up in a minute, we're going to be showing when I actually defeat him, and that does include a few spoilers. So if you don't want a spoiler for the Hearts of Stone, then make sure you look away and don't watch the remainder of the video. Have you stopped? Right, if you've not stopped, you're going to see it. Okay, right, that's fine. So when you beat Olgierd, you actually find out some interesting developments about his character, and then following this battle, you'll actually carry on with Hearts of Stone based on completing the wishes that Gaunter Odin has tasked you with fulfilling for Olgierd. So after you've beaten him, like I say, it's a fantastic fight. I really enjoyed it. If you've made a manual save, you can beat the fight and then carry on with Hearts of Stone, and that's where we're going to be carrying on the next video. One of the things to just bear in mind is you can skip this entirely if you just let them kill the guy. If you try and reason with him or anything like that, then that's they'll execute the person and you can miss this fight entirely. So if you find it very difficult, you can always go back to that manual save I suggested you make, and then skip the Olgierd fight from there. One of the things that is quite good to do though is coming up for a later part of the expansion. One of the later boss fights is fighting things that use Olgierd's style of swordplay, and so if you've done this fight, it's very good practice for that. So next we're going to be moving on to the Borsodi mission and also the Dead Man's Party mission, and we're going to cover a little bit of the Rune Rite as well, and those will follow in separate videos. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you're enjoying the walkthrough, and please like and subscribe if you enjoyed for more videos and the rest of the walkthrough. Thank you very much.
Well struck, Witcher. You win. But perhaps you'd care to tell me why you meddled in a matter not yours.